Morning, market chameleons and Mr. Pargamonic. How you doing this morning, D?
Good morning, Will. 1 second, just trying to bring something up.
All right. Welcome to the show, chameleons. Actually, we've got Adam McBride on the show talking about GME. First one to pop up this morning, D.
Awesome. We know Adam McBride.
Yeah, we know him. We know.
I watch his show every day. Adam McBride has a show, very interesting. And I'm learning a lot about Bitcoin and other investments. So
yeah, no, it's a worthwhile show. That's on YouTube, the Adam McBride show. All right, let's start with the disclaimer.
Okay. So before we get started, everyone, keep in mind, Will and I, Market Chameleon, we're not registered investment advisors. We're not broker dealers. We're not telling you what to do. We're just sharing ideas. If you need professional help, contact your broker. That's what they're there for, to help answer your questions, provide you with guidance. There's the disclaimer, everyone.
All right. Anything going on besides GME this morning?
Yeah, so I think what I'm going to do, let me share my screen real quick. We'll go over really quickly what's going on in pre-market hours, but I wanted to, sometimes people ask to create a watch list and maybe share a watch list. So I did create, I added 2 new watch lists, and I'll talk about them a little bit more. And it's people who are already in the news, but they are saying some interesting things in the news about their research, about their investments. So I created that watch list. I'll tell you more about it after we kind of go through the pre-market movers. And it's 2 different people looking at investments in technology, in innovation, and in disruptive, basically in disruptive companies, that will disrupt industries, or it may potentially even create new industries. So first, let's just take a look what's going on in the pre-market hours. So these are stocks that are trading in pre-market hours. We have the most active stocks, biggest percentage gainers, biggest percentage decliners. I'm going to first filter the higher market cap stocks just to see what's going on there. So let's use this filter: market cap, $20 billion market cap or higher. So we see 32 made the percentage gainers list, 28 on the percentage decliners list. So from that perspective, at the open, we're looking at somewhat neutral, open, not overwhelmingly bullish or bearish from that point of view. Just scanning with my eyes, I see a couple on top of the list that are BILI gain 8.9%, DB 5.5%, not on a huge amount of shares trading in the pre-market hours. One of them looks like it's on a earnings release, reacting on an earnings release. Let me go to the unfiltered report real quick. Take a look at that. And we got a couple lower market cap stocks moving as usual. PA&D up 131%. Looks like they may have some news on there. Possibly, same situation as GME, AMC, TNXP, DYNT up 93%. That's trading 13.2 million shares in the pre-market. I'm just going to hover over there to get a sense of if there's anything going on in that stock. Looks like they do have some news about an agreement. So that's DYNT. I'm not going to open it up. It's a lower market cap stock. I'll let you do that unless we have questions, just so we have more time to kind of go over to cover the watch list, earnings, and answer some questions.
Great.
So if you don't have it, so I added these. I'm going to go to my watch list here. These are 2 watch lists that I created, and probably most of you already, know about these people. So let's start with the first one. It's Cathy Woods, ARK ETFs. Now, you probably see her on, CNBC, Bloomberg, and they do have a different approach from these ARK ETFs. So they're very research based. Their argument is that passive investing or value investing is going to underperform research-based investing because people are falling into these value traps. And basically the argument is that when you're looking for value, what happens is you tend to put capital into industries and stocks that start to look like value. But the problem is that they're looking like value because there's other companies that are disrupting that industry. And because of that disruption, that going forward, you fall into that value trap. So some of their argument is, the financial industry right now is getting challenged. So they might start to look like values, the brick and mortars, but that's because the internet and democratization of the financial industry is going on right now. And you want to be in that sector instead of the original brick and mortars. And they do, and she focuses on, you could go watch her videos, because what's different about it is usually when you see a new ETF, they kind of have this goal, they create a portfolio, and you don't hear much about them. They don't really go out there and talk about their research, explain it. And here they're looking at, I think she focuses on like 5 sectors: artificial intelligence, blockchain technology. I think they're looking at the financial sector. They're looking at it's in healthcare, the genomic, right here. And what's the other side? Let me see it. On robotics sector. And they believe that according to their research, there's a lot of room there to grow. And for those, and so basically they're looking at not the fundamentals of the company right now, because they're saying that eventually they're going to disrupt much bigger industries. So for example, Tesla, right? They're looking at Tesla and saying, well, the Tesla fundamentals right now, might look not like a value, but when you consider that they're in that energy space, and if you take the whole energy space and you consider that their technology is going to be able to store energy, deliver it, and make things much more efficient, and you take that industry as a whole, there's huge potential. So that's their kind of approach. So I created, just as a watch list, these ETFs. And again, another thing that's interesting is, when you usually hear about a hedge fund, there are some hedge funds that do really good research, but you can't invest in that hedge fund, right? So what happens is that the people who are invested in the hedge fund, they're the first ones to get into the stock. And then you get the hedge fund manager after the position is established. Then the hedge fund manager will go on CNBC and push that book, basically, right? That's what we've kind of been seeing. Here, you're actually already invested in the ETF, right? So you're actually getting to participate in their research. They buy the stock, then they so there's a lot more transparency there. And let's just take a look at like a couple of them. We'll see what's inside there, so you get an idea of what's going on. But I think it's something different that they're doing, right? They're doing something different, very innovative. And why I think also it's good to pay attention is that they're actually going out and talking, to these companies to grab that vision, right? They're not just looking at financial statements, but they're actually going out there talking and engaged with people to actually kind of see the vision and then explain it to other people. So hopefully, this is making sense to people. But let's just take a look here. We'll go into, here's next gen, like for example here, next generation internet ETF. And we don't have all this data. I'm going to get our developers to come in there and compile it more, but I'm going to go to their website and kind of show you, what they're doing. So this is what they're seeing: cloud computing, e-commerce, artificial intelligence, mobile technology, Internet of Things, social platforms, blockchain. Not just to mention, she's also big on blockchain, big on Bitcoin. So I think they've been investing in Bitcoin like since it's been 10,000 or something like that.
You got to be aware which fund is investing in Bitcoin, right? She's got so many.
She's got, yeah. So these are the funds here, right? ARK, next generation. You see that there's volume, like, it's very hard. There's a lot of ETFs out there. So to get traction, to get people to invest, they're really out there engaged with the investment community and also with the companies that they're researching, right? They're very engaged, trying to really understand clearly those industries, those technologies, and you could go watch videos and they'll explain it to you, and that's really lacking here, because in the age of like zero commissions, you have very little research. The research is left up to you to go out there and some people are very good at it. Don't get me wrong. Some people are very good at finding research, but it's a different way of kind of listening to people, because they seem very connected into that technology growth phase and what's going on there. They could clearly kind of explain to you what they're seeing, right? What they're seeing from their research and the perspective of the businesses and the industries that they're targeting. So here's an example. We'll just take a look here. I'll just look at the top 10 holdings to show you, what they're looking at. So Tesla is a very big part of their portfolio. I think they're in all their ETFs, right? All their ETFs. This looks like a Bitcoin holding here, 5%. Square. So we know Square, I think they just reported, right? They just reported earnings. They're down.
Yeah, they're a big payment processor.
They're a big payment processor, which she believes also is disruptive. So she's looking at Tesla as a disruptor in the energy space, right? Not just cars, but they're looking at it as a disruptor in the energy space. And sometimes, like, besides the fundamentals, it's the vision. Like at some point, people had a vision that everybody thought was crazy until it came into fruition. Like when somebody, before there were planes flying out there, somebody told you, I'm going to make this big machine fly in the air, people would have thought you're crazy, right? That's never going to happen with, 50, 100, 200 passengers. That would be insane. Now it's not insane anymore. So somebody will have a vision that they believe in. Hey, JP Morgan at one point showed, hey, I'm going to put electricity into every house in New York City, and I'm going to build these big machines. At some point that seemed crazy, right? So that's kind of what they're looking at, like that, what are these people doing and how disruptive are they going to be in these industries? So Tesla, they're looking at it as an energy play, not just the car manufacturing, but as an energy play and also as autonomous driving. So what they're saying is Tesla has all this data on their driving, their units, that is going to give them an edge in creating the next technologies for autonomous driving. Bitcoin, she's a big, and you could go listen to her, but, she thinks that's going to be the reserve currency in the digital space. Square, they're thinking that's going to be disruptive in the financial space. So that's going to be a challenge to the brick and mortar banks.
It is interesting. Like, she doesn't own actually the Bitcoin. She's chose to do it through, that ETF, that trust. That's a publicly traded entity. My brother has used that. That's how he's played the market too.
Right, exactly. So there are other alternatives now to be invested in it than just outright owning the Bitcoin. And what is this? And I guess the safety is, like you were telling me, Will, that the Bitcoin, even though, according to her, she thinks that's the most secure digital currency, but there have been people who have actually lost their Bitcoins, right? Or have it stolen.
Both. They've been stolen and they've been lost. More Bitcoins have been stolen and lost than will ever be created.
So you got to be careful. And I don't understand it quite. At least I never had a Bitcoin. I never had this digital wallet. I know people who have, and but the reason I haven't, what scared me was that there were actually processors that went out of business, right? And people who bought it or held their wallets with them lost their Bitcoins. So maybe this is a different alternative way. And you kind of get a sense of, okay, where they're looking at. And look, like some of these, right now, they look like, they don't look like values right now. And you could go and listen to them and say, but, there is value when you're starting to look at the bigger picture of how they're disrupting industries or changing industries. Let's take a look at, so that's in the internet space. Let's just take a look here. Let's come back to and the reason I bring it up is because there are different approaches to investment. I've been kind of looking at fundamentals, but there's fundamentals, there's momentum, there's the ETFs, different ways to look at investments. So I try to diversify and give you different viewpoints. Here, genomic revolution. Now, this is in healthcare where they believe, and again, you could go and listen to her. She actually goes out there, besides CNBC, I think she's going out to like universities and anybody out there showing her research. And I think what they're saying, their argument is that eventually it'll be much cheaper to, how do these mapping of your genes, right? It'll be much cheaper just to map somebody's genes and be able to detect, cancer or other potential diseases early and be able to treat it. And that's going to, create, and that's going to be a disruptor in the healthcare industry. So let's just take a look there. And there are a couple of them that actually looked even, I was looking at a couple of the stocks in these top 10 holdings, and they don't look that bad even from a fundamental. I think like here, Regeneron, is that one with the COVID? Well, is that the one of those that had a COVID vaccine?
I think it did.
Let me just REG. Let me just take a look. But they're looking deeper and really trying to figure out, what they're doing, not as just a stream of cash flow today, even though they're probably looking at it, but they're looking at it, what is the potential market going forward? That's how they're doing their research. Okay, we realize right now their P's might be high, even though like this one doesn't look high to me. Their P's might be high, their price to sales, but it's the technology that they're building that will be disruptive. So that's in the ARK ETFs. And I'll try to come back to it and just mention them as we go, go along further, but wanted to share that.
No, that's very cool. And actually, of all things, Jake, who's in another time zone, 4 in the morning yesterday on Discord, he actually posted a piece on, I guess there's some interesting options activity in these ARK funds. Yeah. So if anyone wants to check that out, that's on the Discord.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just, look, it's a different way, right? These active, they're basically taking what you would have thought hedge funds, are doing this research, and they've got like more inside look because they're talking to people, these innovators, these tech people in the industries. And that's this ETF kind of, like where you imagine hedge funds usually doing it. And she's got a lot of experience in it. They're doing it through the ETFs. So that's a little bit different than just like these passive, diversified. I think, what was yesterday? I know that yesterday there's what's his name? Munger from Berkshire Hathaway.
Munger. I was going to say it is, Cathy Wood is definitely a different investment style than Buffett and Munger, right?
Yeah, very different. Yeah. But they did say something very similar. And, Berkshire, and they said that you can't just because you have a diversified portfolio of 100 stocks doesn't make you a great investor. You know, that's how people's thinking is. That's one of the things he was saying. So just because you bought 100 stocks, you're diversified or you're passive, does not necessarily mean you're a great investor or you're doing that great. It's kind of the research behind it. What's the value? What's the edge? And here, look, you have somebody out there all the time explaining it to you, and that's rare. You know, that would be only in the hedge fund world usually. The other, let's take a look at the other person who's interesting. Also in the news, I think your brother, if he's watching, your brother
he is on the chat.
Yeah. Shamath, right? So very interesting person, also can articulate the thesis behind his investments. He was an early investor in Facebook, Tesla, very connected kind of to that world.
He also took a GameStop position and sold it out in less than 12 hours.
He did, and he did explain it. He did it as a learning experience. And one of the things that, and I'm also a believer that, you know, for me to learn, I have to take the risk, knowing that I might lose, but in return, I'm going to learn something, right? Because trading is also about learning, and to learn, sometimes you have to take the risk of even losing to, you know, you're not going to, almost anything you do in life, right? Before you learn how to do it right, you're going to do it wrong. You know, whether you're playing a guitar, you're not going to get it right from the first time. You know, playing the piano or football, whatever you're doing, you know, you're going to have to make mistakes and learn from them. And in trading, the mistakes are by losing money and trying it. So that's how you kind of go in there. And that's what he said. I wanted to learn something about this type of momentum trading going on, like in the social media. So he did explain, you could go kind of take a look at his explanation about it. And I think the money he made, he like donated. But yeah, you're right. He did take an options position in the GameStop on the way up on the short squeeze. But also, he is an early investor. You know, Facebook, Tesla, a lot of these technology companies. He's still out there, and he's big on the SPACs, right? So he's bringing these new technologies, these companies that he's trying to IPO through the SPACs that he thinks will be disruptive as well. I think one of the,
the fact that they're traded, they are, I mean, in a sense, IPO'd, right? You can get into whatever his vision, and he may not have merged with an entity yet, but you know, he has a vision. Obviously, one's health investments. Obviously, he's going to look for something that's, you know, he feels is going to change the healthcare space. And
yeah, I think what he's focusing on is healthcare space, clean energy. So energy, I think he's in, you know, he believes in Tesla, he's still invested, energy, and also the financial industry, because he's big on disrupting those three industries. That's what he usually talks about, right? Clean energy, healthcare, and the financial industry. And he's probably right now in the forefront. He's always out there. He's talking about it. He's really does a really good job in articulating why he thinks that where he's investing will be disruptive. So I think he was one in the early. Did he bring up that space spec? What is that one? SpaceX? Yeah. So these are the ones right now that I'm seeing the SPACs, but let me I think it's the Virgin Atlantic. I think he was involved with this one, right? The Virgin Atlantic space.
I think he did have an investment.
Yeah, he might have been bringing it out. So he's big into that. And you could go out and listen to him in very interesting perspective. And I think that the perspective he's getting, a lot of us, you know, we can read it and listen to other people, but I think that he's actually out there talking to the people in the industries and these creators and getting viewpoints that we might not be able to get. So just wanted to bring up these two watch lists. I'll come back to it. So these are the two watch lists to keep an eye out. Not saying to go invest, just to keep an eye out, right? Shamath,
there's a big debate going on the chat because these guys have been promoting their stuff for years, right? And
years,
and you're right, they do they believe what they're promoting. I don't doubt that, but
he's invested in invested in what he's promoting, so he does have an interest in it. And listen, there's something about when you're not just promoting and explaining, but when you are able to go out there and get on CNBC, get on Bloomberg, and you have the attention of people, that makes a difference, because you could have a great product, you could have an amazing product, but if nobody knows about it, nobody wants to invest in it, and nobody knows how to use it, right? So kind of think about it like, one of the big values, I think, like, Elon Musk brings on the table, is that when he goes out there, people are paying attention and listening. So it's much easier for him to get people to invest in his ideas and to get people to go and use his products. And that's a big value. So they are out there explaining the investments for these companies, and I think that itself creates value.
Yeah,
right?
And even in the time that we've been, Market Chameleon's been in business and we've been doing shows, I mean, the tides have turned. Like Cathy Woods, when she was on and making her calls, people thought she could be crazy. When she was calling Tesla could be $1,000, $4,000, had a huge moat around its technology, and Tesla's fallen out of bed. It was in the hundreds when we were talking about it, 3 years ago. And she's turned out, certainly in the short term, to be the most right on point person there is. But everything can turn too, so you got to be careful.
Yeah, and we don't know. Yeah, everything could turn. She could turn out wrong, but sometimes the people who are saying you're crazy, or you don't know what you're talking, sometimes they turn out to be right, because a lot of these new ideas that we're not used to, right, or we don't see it ahead of time, right? We don't know about it ahead of time, seem crazy, just like making a flying machine, like an airplane, or building bridges that will hold all these cars, and all these things seemed crazy at one point, right? Look, building all these Manhattan, these big buildings in Manhattan with steel seemed crazy at one point, until somebody had to prove that it's possible, and that's kind of where they are. They saw it in social media and Facebook. Someone saw it in Amazon, someone saw it in Tesla, and they're in that space where they're talking to the people. They're out hitting the ground floor, talking to the people. So getting their perspective is interesting. Anyway,
you and I have also been around a long time. And, Amazon had a huge run at the start. Yeah. I mean, we were trading in the pits, right? Yeah. And then they came way back down. And the ones that survived, it was huge if you got in. But if there were.
Yeah, you might be wrong about the company, but the industry definitely, right? Yeah. The internet space, right?
The changes that are going on are real and are going to be major. The winners, I mean, and Tesla may be the ultimate winner for changing, energy, transportation, space. Certainly seems like it at the moment. But you never know what happens in the next, 60, 90, 1,000 days.
Right. So, look, we didn't get to do much but talk about some of these watches. We do get a lot of questions about, create a watch list. And that's what, you find something interesting, what's going on, create a watch list, take, kind of keep an eye on it, but it's a reminder to go and check, on the news, what's new there, what are they doing that's different, and always have that perspective, right? Like, well, what are they thinking? What are they doing? How are they looking at the information differently than I'm looking at that information.
That's awesome stuff, D. Awesome
Right.
stuff. Thanks for joining us, everyone. D, any last words for the group?
Well, thank you for joining us. Stay safe. Hope you have a great trading day. Appreciate all the emails I'm getting from you guys.